There's a rhythm to perfect marriages. A quiet choreography. You smile, you stir the coffee, you nod at the right moments. You remember to buy the low-fat yogurt because he says the regular one makes him feel sluggish, and you laugh politely when he makes that same joke about flossing being the secret to long life. That's marriage, at least the kind you can frame for the neighbors. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Adam and I had been married for 15 years, and our lawn still looked like the cover of a real estate brochure. The shrubs were trimmed into obedient little domes, the porch swing creaked just enough to sound inviting, and our mailbox gleamed brighter than the neighbors. In Maplewood Estates, the hierarchy of perfection was a sport, and I was an Olympic contender until the cracks started to show. It began with the phone. The device became an extra limb attached to Adam's hand. He used to leave it on the kitchen counter, unlocked, careless. Lately, it traveled everywhere with him. Into the bathroom, the garage, even when he was watering the hydrangeas. Once, I heard the shower running while the faint blue light of the screen glowed through the frosted glass. A dentist's devotion to oral hygiene apparently extended to digital secrecy. He told me he was exhausted. Patients, staff drama, supply issues. I told him I understood. I even made him lasagna on Tuesday nights, his comfort meal. He complimented it without looking up from his phone. I smiled because smiling was muscle memory by now. One afternoon, Jessica from next door knocked, holding a tray of cookies and the kind of expression that only arrives before bad news disguised as kindness. "You and Adam are such a power couple," she began, the way a cat circles before pouncing. "I saw him the other day at Bluestone Cafe with one of his assistants. She's so young and energetic. Must be nice to have help like that." Her eyes sparkled with polite venom. Maplewood conversations were sugar-coated grenades. You smiled while waiting for the explosion. I thanked her, complimented her cookies, and closed the door before my own expression could betray the smallest twitch. That night, I watched Adam set his phone face down beside his plate. He was talking about expanding the practice, maybe hiring another hygienist. His tone was breezy, confident. I asked about the assistant. "Claire, right?" He blinked too quickly. "Yeah, Claire. She's new. Talented. Why?" "Jessica mentioned seeing you two at Bluestone." He paused, forked mid-air. "Oh, right. We had a staff meeting. Scheduling stuff." "Must be serious scheduling if it needed pasta and wine." He frowned, that professional dentist expression, equal parts charm and irritation. "You're reading too much into things, Sam," I smiled. "Of course, I'm a lawyer. It's my hobby." The silence after that was so tidy you could have shelved it next to our wedding album. In the following days, the air between us grew thin. Conversations shrank to logistics. Who would walk the dog? Who would pay the electric bill? Who forgot to close the garage? Adam started wearing cologne again, the expensive kind I gave him years ago when he got his license framed. He said it made him feel refreshed for clients. Clients, right. One Saturday, I arrived early at his clinic with lunch. A surprise, or at least I wanted it to be. The waiting area was empty except for the soft hum of music. His office door was slightly ajar. I heard laughter, hers, high-pitched and fluttery, followed by his lower tone. I stood there long enough to hear her call him A in that intimate shorthand people use when they think they're safe. I left the lunch on the counter and walked out. I didn't make a scene. That would have been too ordinary. Instead, I drove to the lake, parked, and stared at the ripples until they blurred. My reflection looked composed, and that was all that mattered. By evening, Adam texted, "Long day, heading home soon. Thanks for lunch. You're the best." I replied with a heart emoji. Efficient communication. No evidence of turbulence. That week, my sarcasm became a defense mechanism. I made jokes about midlife crises and whitening strips. At the neighborhood potluck, Jessica asked where Adam was. Probably fixing cavities and creating new ones, I said. The women laughed, and I collected their curiosity like souvenirs. The truth was, I didn't need proof. Instinct is evidence enough when you've studied people for a living. Lawyers read silence the way musicians read notes. Adam's pauses were suddenly offbeat. Still, part of me wanted the undeniable, the kind of clarity that leaves no room for misunderstandings. So I began to watch patterns. When he showered, when he smiled, when he left the house claiming late appointments, he started humming again, an old habit of his when he was hiding something. He used to hum before surprising me with gifts. Now he hummed before disappearing. 2 weeks later, he invited me to dinner at our favorite restaurant, the one where he proposed. We haven't been out in ages, he said. His voice had that manufactured warmth, like a realtor describing a fixer-upper as cozy. At the restaurant, the lighting was forgiving, and the air smelled faintly of basil. The waiter recognized us, which somehow made the night worse. Adam was animated, talking about renovations at the clinic. I watched his hands as he spoke, steady, practiced. Then his phone lit up. A message preview flashed before he could tilt it away. Can't wait to see you later. My smile held, practiced as ever. Everything okay? I asked. Work thing, he said, sliding the phone into his pocket. I stirred my wine slowly. Must be important work to need a heart emoji. He exhaled, almost laughed. Sam, don't start. I'm not starting, I said lightly, just observing. The waiter appeared, and we pretended to be normal again. Conversation limped along until dessert. I ordered tiramisu, even though I wasn't hungry. It gave me something to do with my hands. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went into his office, sat at his desk, and looked around. The books were arranged by color, my doing. On top of the pile was a stack of patient files and, underneath, an envelope. It was from a private lab addressed to him. The seal was already broken. Curiosity is a dangerous habit for someone who argues for facts in court. I opened it carefully. Inside, a report, DNA test results. The name Claire Monroe stood out. The child tested was not related to Adam Bennett. I sat there for a long time, tracing the neat black letters with my finger. I didn't feel shock, more a quiet click of understanding, like realizing a riddle's answer had been sitting on your desk all along. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I waited. Timing, after all, is the backbone of both law and theatre. A week later, Adam came home humming again. Big day tomorrow, he said, loosening his tie. We're celebrating the expansion of the clinic. You should come, make it official. Celebrating? I asked, feigning surprise. Yeah, dinner at Bluestone. Some of the team will be there. Claire too? He paused just long enough for confirmation. Of course, she's part of the team. Of course, I echoed and smiled. The next evening, I dressed carefully. Not to impress, but to perform. Navy dress, pearl earrings, hair perfectly curled. When I entered Bluestone Cafe, the air buzzed with quiet laughter. At the far corner, under the warm light, sat Adam and Claire. His hand rested near hers. She leaned in, laughing, her shoulder brushing his. They looked like an advertisement for betrayal. I walked toward them, every step measured. Adam's expression shifted from charm to confusion to a flicker of panic. Sam, he began, standing up too fast. Congratulations on your freedom, I said, setting my purse on the table. Claire blinked, unsure whether to smile or flee. I slid an envelope across the linen tablecloth. You might want to read this before dessert. Adam's fingers trembled just slightly as he opened it. His eyes scanned the lines, and the practiced calm drained from his face. Claire leaned over his shoulder, then recoiled. I picked up a napkin, dabbed the corner of my mouth. It's quite the surprise, isn't it? Turns out the little one isn't yours. Genetics can be tricky. The restaurant had gone quiet. the way a courtroom does when a verdict is about to land. I stood, adjusted my jacket, and smiled for the watching crowd. "Enjoy the evening," I said. "You deserve it." Then I turned and walked out, the click of my heels echoing against the polished floor. Outside, the night was cool, almost gentle. The air smelled faintly of rain and triumph. I got into my car, started the engine, and looked once at the restaurant's glowing windows. Inside, silhouettes moved, frantic, small, contained. I drove home slowly, each streetlight flickering across the windshield like a metronome. My hands were steady on the wheel. Somewhere between the third and fourth turn, I realized I was humming. Softly, tunelessly, the way Adam used to. It felt oddly appropriate. When I reached our house, the porch light was still on. I parked, sat for a minute, and exhaled. The rhythm of the perfect marriage had finally broken, and in its silence, something new began. Quiet, deliberate, sharp enough to cut porcelain. When I woke up the morning after Bluestone, the house felt lighter, like it had exhaled while I was asleep. The usual tension that used to cling to the air, his sighs, the buzzing phone, the polite silences, had vanished. It was replaced by something quieter, sharper, the calm that comes after a storm you started on purpose. Adam didn't come home that night. I half expected a dramatic entrance at 2 a.m., maybe a speech about misunderstandings and love, but nothing, just stillness. I made coffee, fed the dog, and reviewed a client file while the sun came through the kitchen blinds. The smell of roasted beans and ink from my notes mixed into something oddly comforting. At 8:15, the front door opened. He stepped in, wearing the same clothes from the night before, shirt wrinkled, tie hanging like an exhausted flag. His face was pale, his eyes restless. "Morning," I said without looking up. He hesitated, then tried to sound casual. "Sam, can we talk?" I underlined a paragraph on my legal pad. "Sure, I've got 10 minutes before court prep." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "What you did last night was out of line." I looked up, finally meeting his eyes. "You mean telling the truth? I thought that was your favorite thing about me." He rubbed his forehead. "You embarrassed me in front of my colleagues." I laughed, soft, genuine. "Oh, I'm pretty sure the embarrassment came from the part where you lied to everyone you know. I just helped the audience catch up to the plot." His jaw tightened. "Do you have any idea what this could do to my career?" I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "That's what happens when you build your practice on charm instead of honesty." He sighed. "Sam, please, let's not make this ugly." I tilted my head. "You started ugly, Adam. I'm just polishing it so everyone can see the reflection." He looked at me, then the floor, speechless for once. A small miracle before breakfast. I gathered my folders, slipped into my blazer, and brushed past him. "We'll continue this later," I said, "after I do something productive with my day." As I closed the door behind me, I caught a glimpse of him standing in the middle of the kitchen, like a man who'd misplaced his confidence. By noon, the gossip machine had begun its work. Maplewood had the efficiency of a small-town newsroom when it came to scandal. Jessica texted first. "Heard something wild about last night. Call me." I didn't. Instead, I went back to the office and buried myself in case files, pretending to care about contract clauses while my phone buzzed with curiosity. I could practically feel the neighborhood craning its neck in my direction. That evening, Adam tried again. He showed up at my office just before closing, holding 2 cups of coffee and an expression that screamed damage control. "Can we please talk somewhere private?" "I'm at work," I said flatly. "I'll wait." The receptionist gave me a look that said, "You want me to kick him out?" I waved her off. "Fine. 10 minutes." We sat in the empty conference room. He placed the coffees on the table like a peace offering. "I made a mistake," he began. "Which part? The affair, the lying, or thinking you could talk your way out of it?" He swallowed. "It wasn't serious. It just happened. I never meant to hurt you." That's the thing about people like you, I said. You measure damage in intentions, not results. He leaned forward, desperate now. Please, Sam, if this gets out, I could lose patients. Your clinic will survive, I interrupted. What might not survive is your reputation, but you built that reputation. Maybe you can rebuild it too. Can we at least agree to keep this private? He asked. I stared at him. You're asking a lawyer to agree to a confidentiality clause. Cute. He looked exhausted. I know you're angry. I'm not angry, I said calmly. I'm observant. There's a difference. We sat in silence for a few moments. The sound of the air conditioner filled the room. He finally stood, muttering something about needing time to think. Take all the time you need, I said, gathering my things. Just don't expect me to wait for you to find your integrity. When I got home, the answering machine light was blinking. My mother-in-law, Harriet, had left a message. Samantha, I heard some ridiculous rumor about you causing a scene. Please call me. This family doesn't need more drama. I deleted it. Later that night, I opened a bottle of wine and scrolled through social media. Someone had tagged the restaurant in a post. You won't believe what happened at Bluestone last night. The comments were already spiraling. Guesses, theories, sympathy emojis. Maplewood thrived on other people's misfortune like it was fuel. I poured another glass and toasted to the chaos. By morning, I'd moved past shock. I was in strategy mode now. Every betrayal has a structure. You just have to find the weak beam and pull. Adam sent a text. We need to talk again. Please. I ignored it. Instead, I called a friend at a private lab, an old client who owed me a favor. I need official copies of a report, I said, confidentially. Of course, he replied. You're the lawyer who helped me keep my license. Consider it done. Within an hour, I had 2 certified copies of the DNA results. One I kept, the other I sealed in an envelope addressed to Mr. Tom Monroe, Claire's husband. I wasn't cruel, just thorough. That evening, Jessica cornered me at the mailbox. So, she began, her voice dripping curiosity. I heard Adam and that assistant, what's her name, Claire, aren't exactly professional. I smiled politely. Oh, Jessica, you know how rumors are. Sometimes they're even true. Her jaw dropped slightly, then she laughed nervously. You always have such a way with words. Years of practice, I said, closing the mailbox. Say hi to your husband. The next few days played out like a well-rehearsed courtroom drama. I stayed calm, collected, showing up to work, attending social events, smiling just enough to make everyone wonder what I knew. Meanwhile, Adam was unraveling. He called, texted, even stopped by the house, each message more frantic than the last. By Friday, the neighborhood grapevine had turned our marriage into a running serial. People whispered in grocery aisles, stopped talking when I walked into yoga class. I didn't mind. Silence was power if you used it right. Then, on Saturday, the storm broke. Tom Monroe showed up at Adam's clinic, loud, furious, demanding answers. I wasn't there, but Jessica called within the hour to check if I was okay. Translation: she wanted front row access to the latest act. According to her version, Tom had confronted Adam in front of staff and patients, waving the DNA report like a torch. Claire burst into tears. Adam denied everything, and someone had to call security. The image almost made me laugh. That night, Adam came home again. No warning this time. I was on the couch, reading, when the door slammed. What did you do? He demanded. I looked up slowly. Define do. It's such a flexible verb. You sent that report to Claire's husband. I closed the book. Technically, it was already his information to know. He stepped closer, face tight. You've ruined her life. I met his glare without blinking. You ruined ours. She was just a willing assistant. He clenched his fists, then dropped them, pacing. You don't understand. This could destroy everything I've built. Then maybe you should have built something sturdier, I said, standing. He stared at me, speechless again. I almost pitied him for how predictable he'd become. You know, I continued, I used to think betrayal was the worst thing a person could do, but it's not. It's underestimating someone who knows how to fight back. His voice cracked slightly. What do you want from me? I tilted my head. Nothing. Want implies care. This is just balance. He left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I waited until his car pulled away, then opened my phone and typed a short message to Jessica. You were right. He was seeing her. Then I deleted it. Some rumors don't need help. They just need a little wind. Over the next few days, things began to shift in the neighborhood. People stopped pretending not to know. The friendly waves became cautious nods. At the grocery store, the cashier asked how I was holding up, as if I'd lost a relative instead of a reputation I never wanted. At work, my colleagues treated me like a celebrity in a courtroom scandal. One of them whispered, "If you ever need representation, I know a great divorce attorney." I smiled. Thanks, but I write my own contracts. Meanwhile, Claire vanished from the clinic. Someone said she'd gone to stay with a cousin in Michigan. Adam avoided social media completely. His practice page was flooded with anonymous comments, some sympathetic, most not. I wasn't proud, exactly, but there was a satisfaction in watching a carefully built lie collapse under its own weight, like watching a perfect porcelain vase slip and shatter, knowing you didn't push it, you just stopped catching it. By the end of that week, Adam texted again. Can we meet? Please, just talk. I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Sure, our favorite place. Tomorrow, 7. The next evening, Bluestone Cafe looked the same. Soft lights, piano music, couples pretending they weren't bored. I chose the same table as before, facing the door. He arrived late, looking like he hadn't slept. Thanks for coming, he said quietly. I'm not here for you, I replied. I'm here for closure. He sighed, sinking into the chair. You've made your point, Sam. I get it. I messed up. Messed up implies a spill on the carpet. This was more of a renovation project. He winced. I don't want to fight anymore. Good, I said, because I'm not fighting. I'm observing the aftermath. The waiter appeared, took our orders, vanished. Adam leaned forward. I'll sign the divorce papers. Whatever you want. Just don't drag my name through more mud. I won't have to, I said calmly. You've done a fine job yourself. He ran a hand through his hair, defeated. Why are you doing this? Because for 15 years I built a life around honesty, and you turned it into a performance. I'm just ending the show properly. The food arrived. Neither of us touched it. When the bill came, I reached for my purse. He tried to stop me. I'll pay. I smiled. No, this one's on me. Consider it a farewell gift. Outside, the night air was cool again, just like before. He followed me to the parking lot. Sam, he said softly, is there any way to fix this? I stopped, turning just enough to meet his eyes. Fixing it would require rewinding time. Unless you've developed that skill, no. He swallowed hard. You used to love me. I used to love the version of you that hadn't forgotten who he was, I said. That man's gone. He looked as if he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. I opened my car door. Take care, Adam, and maybe invest in a password stronger than Claire 123. The shock on his face was almost worth the months of suspicion. I got in, started the engine and drove away, watching him shrink in the rearview mirror until he disappeared into the soft glow of the parking lot lights. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Not joy, not relief, just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a truth finally spoken out loud. When I pulled into the driveway, the porch light flickered on automatically, welcoming me home. I stepped inside, slipped off my heels, and laughed to myself. The choreography of the perfect marriage had ended. From now on, I was writing a new rhythm, one with sharper notes, cleaner steps, and absolutely no encore. If Maplewood Estates had a mayor, it would be gossip. It governed the lawns, the dinner parties, the school fundraisers, and even the silent nods exchanged over recycling bins. By Monday morning, everyone knew that the dentist and his perfect wife had troubles. By Tuesday, they had theories. By Wednesday, they had picked sides. I didn't have to imagine what was being said. Jessica's eager face at my front door gave me the whole script. She came carrying a banana bread loaf and the kind of compassion that feeds on curiosity. "You're so strong," she said, eyes wide. "If it were me, I don't know what I'd do." "You'd probably bake," I said, smiling. "You're good at that." Her laughter came out awkward and thin. "People just can't believe it. Adam always seemed so stable." "Stable men don't hide messages under their napkins," I said lightly, slicing the bread. "Want some tea?" She stayed for 40 minutes, gathering details like a journalist on a deadline she didn't have to meet. By the time she left, I was certain the story would travel faster than a power outage in a storm. I didn't mind. Rumors were currency, and I was rich enough to spend freely. The strange thing was, I felt lighter. For years I'd played the role of the good wife, the quiet lawyer, the woman who smiled through small talk about hydrangeas and dental insurance plans. Now people whispered my name with either pity or admiration, and both felt better than invisibility. Adam, meanwhile, was crumbling. He'd moved out temporarily, claiming it was to give us space. The truth was, he couldn't face the neighborhood. His practice was shrinking faster than a winter day. Patients cancelled appointments due to scheduling conflicts. His receptionist quit. Even his partner, Dr. Levine, suddenly discovered he needed a break from shared responsibilities. Every time I walked past his office building, I saw fewer cars in the parking lot. Sometimes, through the glass, I'd glimpse him sitting alone at the reception desk, pretending to check charts. The sight should have stirred pity. It didn't. It just confirmed that he was finally seeing what it felt like to be powerless. One afternoon, Harriet, my charming mother-in-law, called. Her voice had the crispness of a woman who'd rehearsed every word. "Samantha, I think we should talk. This situation has gotten out of hand." "Which situation?" I asked. "Your son's affair, or the part where he forgot to tell me?" "I understand you're hurt," she said tightly, "but humiliating him publicly was unnecessary. We all make mistakes." "Not all of us make them with our assistants," I replied. "You've always had a sharp tongue," she said. "Adam adored that at first. Now it's just cruel." "Cruel is lying to your wife for a year. I'm just responding in kind." "You'll regret this," she warned. "Maybe," I said. "But not today." After that, I blocked her number. Maplewood peace restored. That weekend, I decided to test how far the gossip had traveled. I went to the local farmer's market, dressed neatly, smile in place. Every conversation stopped when I walked by. It was almost theatrical, the shift in tone, the side glances, the whispers. I picked up tomatoes and said loudly, "Best in town, don't you think, Mrs. Clark?" She nodded too quickly. "Oh yes, Samantha, wonderful tomatoes." I could almost hear her mind racing for something polite to add. I paid in cash and walked away, humming to myself. The next day, a friend from college called. "Sam, I just read something online," she said hesitantly. "There's a thread about Adam's clinic on a local forum. People are saying his assistant ran off, that the practice is a mess." I smiled into the receiver. People do love a good story. "Did you plant it?" "No," I said, "but I'm not correcting it either." That night, I poured a glass of wine and scrolled through the thread. It was brutal. Patients demanding refunds, speculating about affairs, one even posting that Dr. Bennett has a pattern of inappropriate behavior. I didn't write it, but I understood the sentiment. Lies have a way of multiplying once you feed them oxygen. Still, I wanted something more personal. Revenge should feel tangible, not digital. So I decided to visit Claire's house. It wasn't hard to find. Maplewood had only so many townhomes with overwatered rose bushes and cheap patio furniture. I waited until dark, then parked a few houses away. Her windows were dark except for one upstairs light. I walked quietly along the sidewalk, a hoodie pulled over my head. Her front door had a mail slot. I slid in a thick envelope, copies of old text messages between her and Adam, ones I'd found on our shared phone account. I'd highlighted the most incriminating lines, underlined his nickname for her. On top of that, I placed a single photo, her laughing in Adam's office, taken from the clinic's holiday party. Then, for good measure, I tucked one of Adam's business cards inside. I left without looking back, my heartbeat steady and precise. The next morning, Maplewood's peace shattered like glass. I didn't even need to step outside to feel it. Jessica called at 9 sharp. "Oh my goodness, did you hear? Claire's husband threw her out. He was yelling in the driveway. Something about betrayal. The police had to come." I feigned concern. "That's awful. Poor man. Apparently he found proof of her affair. Can you believe it?" "Proof?" I said, hiding a smile. That must have been hard to miss. Jessica lowered her voice. "You didn't have anything to do with this, did you?" "Me," I said innocently. "I've been busy with work." I could hear the wheels turning in her mind. She wanted to believe me, but the alternative was too delicious to dismiss. By noon, the entire neighborhood knew. Tom Monroe packed Claire's things into trash bags and left them on the lawn. She screamed at him, then sped away in her small silver car. Someone filmed the whole thing from their porch, and by evening, the video had circulated in the local Facebook group under the title, "When Karma Comes Home." I watched it once, then deleted the link. I didn't need to replay victory. It was already unfolding in real time. But peace, even the justified kind, has a way of attracting retaliation. That night, as I left my office, I noticed something strange. My car had a long scratch down the side, deep enough to catch the light under the street lamp. On the windshield sat an envelope. Inside was a note written in hurried, angry handwriting. "You'll regret this." No signature, but the perfume scent was familiar. Cheap floral, the same one Claire used. I stared at the note for a moment, then folded it neatly and tucked it into my purse. Reporting it would make it official. Keeping it private made it useful. The next morning, I washed the car myself. The neighbors watched, probably wondering why a woman with my salary was scrubbing her own vehicle. I made sure to hum loudly enough for them to hear. Sometimes calmness is its own weapon. Later that week, Adam called again. "Can we talk?" "You're persistent," I said. "This isn't about us," he replied. "Claire's husband showed up at my clinic again. He's threatening to sue. He says someone sent him those lab results and messages." "How terrible," I said dryly. "You should hire a lawyer." "That's not funny, Sam." "I wasn't joking. I know a great one." He sighed into the phone. "I can't believe you'd stoop to this." "I didn't stoop," I said evenly. "I just stopped pretending to be smaller than you." He hung up without another word. For a moment I felt a twinge of something close to pity, but only for myself. For the years wasted believing his half-smiles and rehearsed apologies. That version of me was gone, replaced by someone who knew exactly how to hold her ground. The following weekend, the neighborhood held its annual charity auction at the community hall. I decided to go. People stared as I walked in, some smiling too brightly, others pretending not to notice. I made a point of bidding on a few items: a wine basket, a painting, a set of spa vouchers, just enough to appear normal. Halfway through the evening, Jessica sidled up beside me. "Adam's here," she whispered. I turned. He stood across the room, looking thinner, tired. His mother was with him, whispering sharply into his ear. Their presence drew attention like a fire in a theater. I took a sip of wine and smiled. "Perfect," I murmured. When our eyes met, he hesitated. I raised my glass in a mock toast. He didn't return it. Harriet glared at me from across the room, her lips tightening. People started murmuring again, and I realized something profound. I no longer cared what they said. The gossip carousel could spin all it wanted. I wasn't on the ride anymore. I was the operator. The next morning, I found another note under my door. This one was typed, "You think you've won, but this isn't over." It had no perfume, no handwriting I could trace. Maybe Adam, maybe Claire, maybe someone else who enjoyed chaos. I read it twice, then placed it neatly in a drawer with the first note. Evidence, not fear. Days passed quietly after that. Claire's house went up for sale. Adam's clinic officially announced a temporary closure for renovation. The sign out front looked sad, the paint starting to peel. Sometimes I walked past it on my way to work, just to remind myself that consequences can be architectural. They leave visible marks. One evening, while watering my plants, Jessica appeared again. "You must feel vindicated," she said. "Vindication is overrated," I replied. "I prefer closure." She tilted her head. "Is that what this is? Closure?" I smiled faintly. "Not yet." That night, I sat on my porch, wine glass in hand, the air warm and heavy with the scent of cut grass. Somewhere down the street, a sprinkler ticked rhythmically. The neighborhood had finally quieted, but I knew calm never lasts in places like this. Beneath the polished surfaces, something always festers. I wasn't finished, not entirely. Claire had learned her lesson, but Adam still had his pride. Pride is a fragile thing, and I intended to test just how fragile his could be. I was done reacting. It was time to act again. I opened my laptop and began typing. A post, anonymous, brief, curious how a dentist can afford luxury cars when his practice is closed. Anyone else wonder? I hit submit and leaned back, listening to the crickets outside. By morning, the post had already been shared across local forums. Speculation bloomed like weeds. Someone posted a blurry photo of Adam's BMW parked outside a downtown bar with a woman who wasn't me, or Claire. Someone else suggested he'd taken out loans. The truth didn't matter. The rumor did the work. When I checked my phone at lunch, Jessica had texted again. "You really should see what people are saying about Adam." I smiled. I already had. That evening, I saw him drive past my house. He slowed down, staring for a second before speeding away. I waved from the porch, not because he could see me clearly, but because I wanted him to feel the gesture. The reminder that the woman he'd underestimated still occupied his world, and his mind. Later, I went inside, locked the door, and looked at my reflection in the window. The woman staring back was calm, composed, unflinching. The cracks in the porcelain were still there, but they no longer looked like damage. They looked like design. Tomorrow, I would decide the next move. For now, I let the silence settle around me, like a perfectly tailored suit. The gossip carousel would keep spinning, but I was already thinking about the next act. The one where I didn't just survive the story. I rewrote it. When you grow up in a town like Maplewood, you learn the art of performance early. Every driveway is a stage, every barbecue an audience. After weeks of whispers, I realized the best revenge wasn't silence, it was spectacle. The trick was to make it look unplanned. By the time April arrived, Adam's reputation had eroded to a rumor, and a few insurance clients too stubborn to find a new dentist. His clinic sat half empty most days, and even the sign out front had lost a few letters, like the building itself was trying to forget his name. He had texted me several times that week, each message shorter, more frantic. "We need to talk. It's getting worse." "Please, Sam." I didn't reply. It wasn't avoidance, it was strategy. You don't rush the moment when the person who betrayed you finally starts begging for mercy. You watch, you wait, and then you make sure everyone sees what happens next. On Thursday, he came by unannounced again. I heard his car before I saw him. Too fast for a residential street, the engine growling like he wanted attention. He knocked, then pounded. Sam, open the door. I counted to 5 before answering, enough to remind him that he was on my time now. He looked terrible, shirt untucked, eyes ringed in fatigue. "You've got to stop whatever you're doing," he said. "The posts, the rumors, the comments, they're destroying everything." "I haven't posted a thing," I said truthfully. "People talk. It's human nature. Don't play innocent." "I'm not innocent," I replied. "I'm informed." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're enjoying this?" I smiled faintly. "No, Adam, I'm documenting it." That made him pause. "Documenting?" "Lawyers document things. For accuracy." His jaw tightened. "You think you're clever?" "No," I said. "Just patient." He took a step closer, his voice rising. "You've gone too far, Sam. This isn't you." "I think it's exactly me," I said, and before he could respond, I lifted my phone. The screen light caught his expression, furious, desperate, a man realizing too late that the cameras had been rolling long before he noticed. "Smile," I said softly. "You're on camera." He blinked, took a half step back, then turned away without another word. His car screeched out of the driveway, tires squealing, and for a brief moment I felt the same satisfaction I used to get from winning a trial. Precise, deserved, absolute. That night, I uploaded the video to a private gossip forum under an anonymous username. It wasn't incriminating, just enough to show the great Dr. Bennett yelling on his ex-wife's porch like a reality TV contestant who'd lost control of his script. I didn't need to say his name. Maplewood was small enough to fill in the blanks. By morning, the video had over 200 comments. People debated who he was, speculated, dissected his expression frame by frame. Someone even compared it to a dentist's version of a meltdown. I closed my laptop and smiled. Still, I wasn't done. The digital fallout was easy. The personal part required choreography. I decided to make an appearance at the local country club, the one Adam loved to frequent with his colleagues, the one I had avoided since everything exploded. I wore a navy sheath dress, the color of quiet confidence, and walked in like the scandal had elevated me instead of scarred me. The stares followed instantly. I took a seat at the bar, ordered a gin and tonic, and pretended not to notice the whispers. Within minutes, one of Adam's business partners, Dr. Levine, approached. "Samantha," he said carefully, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Why not? I paid for a membership too," I said, smiling. He shifted uncomfortably. "There's been talk." "There's always talk," I replied, "but it's nice to know people still find us interesting." He cleared his throat. "I just wanted to say, no matter what's happened, I always respected you." "That's kind of you," I said. "Does Adam know you're talking to me?" "He tends to collect loyalty like frequent flyer miles." Levine gave a nervous laugh, mumbled something about needing to check on a friend, and left. 10 minutes later, I saw him outside taking a phone call, gesturing animatedly. I didn't need to guess who he was talking to. That night, Adam texted again. "Why are you doing this?" I typed back, "Because you deserve a reflection of your own actions." Then I deleted the message and sent nothing. Letting him imagine what I might say was far more effective. The next few days unfolded like a slow-motion movie. His practice partner officially resigned for health reasons. Local clients started booking with a competitor across town. Someone posted photos of the clinic's waiting room, empty at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. The comments were merciless. I knew it was only a matter of time before he confronted me again, and I was ready. Friday evening, as I locked my office door, I noticed a car idling across the street. Familiar shape, familiar impatience. I walked toward my car deliberately, aware of every motion. "Sam," he shouted, getting out of his vehicle. "We need to talk." "I think we've established that we don't," I said, unlocking my door. He reached for my arm, not hard, but enough to cross the line. "Stop running away from this." I turned sharply, pulling free. Let go. Listen to me. No, I said firmly. You listen. He froze, startled by my tone. I stepped closer, calm but unwavering. If you ever put your hand on me again, even by accident, I will walk straight into the police station with the footage, and there will be footage. Understand? He stared at me, his anger deflating into something smaller. Fear, maybe. Then he nodded, muttering, You've turned into someone else. I've turned into someone who learned, I said. He backed away slowly, got in his car, and sped off. I stood there for a moment, watching the taillights disappear. The air smelled faintly of rain and asphalt, clean, tense, alive. That night, I watched the footage from my dash camera. His face, the way he grabbed my arm, the moment I pulled away, it was all there. Perfectly clear. I didn't plan to use it yet, but knowing I had it felt like holding an ace in a rigged game. Saturday, I decided to push the next phase of my plan. I called a friend who handled PR for small businesses. Hypothetically, I asked, if someone wanted to make sure a professional scandal stayed visible online, how long could it last? She chuckled. Hypothetically, forever, if you know where to plant it. Good to know, I said. That evening, I posted another anonymous message, this time on a community review site. It wasn't cruel, just factual enough to sound credible. Doctor, Bennett's clinic is under review for ethical violations. Patients beware. I didn't need to specify what kind of violations. People's imaginations are far more creative than anything I could write. The next day, the clinic's Google rating dropped by 0.5 star. Small number, big impact. When I went for a walk that afternoon, several neighbors smiled cautiously, unsure whether to treat me as a victim or a victor. I let them wonder. Then came the confrontation I didn't plan for. Sunday evening, I came home to find Adam waiting on the porch. His car was parked crookedly, one tire on the curb. He looked wrecked, hair uncombed, shirt wrinkled, a man whose pride had finally run out of fuel. You win, he said flatly as I approached. I didn't know it was a competition, I replied, brushing past him to unlock the door. He followed me inside. It's over, Sam. Everything. My practice. My reputation. You've ruined me. I turned to face him. No, Adam. You ruined yourself. I just made sure people saw the truth. Do you have any idea what this feels like? He demanded. Yes, I said quietly. I lived it for months. He sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. You could have walked away. You didn't have to drag it out. I leaned against the counter. You dragged it first. You dragged it through lies, dinners, hotel receipts, phone calls you thought I'd never see. You dragged it through every I love you didn't mean. So yes, I dragged it back. He looked up at me, his eyes glassy. I don't even know who you are anymore. I smiled. Then maybe for once we're even. He stood suddenly, knocking over the chair. You think you've won, but you'll regret this when you're alone. I stepped closer, voice calm, steady. Alone is better than living with a man who needed an audience to feel powerful. He glared at me for a long moment, then stormed toward the door. Halfway out, he turned. You'll never move on from this, Sam. I tilted my head. Watch me. The door slammed. I waited until the sound faded, then reached for my phone and opened my camera app again. The entire exchange was recorded from the kitchen counter. I hadn't even meant to start filming. It had been habit by now. Later that night, I sent the video to a private backup drive and locked my phone in a drawer. Enough evidence. Enough noise for now. When I finally sat down, the house felt strange. Not empty, exactly, but balanced. Like every object was back in its rightful place. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere in the distance, and I thought about how every storm in Maplewood was followed by neighbors checking fences and swapping stories. Tomorrow, they'd talk again. They'd talk about how Dr. Bennett had shown up at his ex-wife's house, how she stood her ground, how the great man finally looked small. And I'd let them, As I poured myself a drink, I caught my reflection in the glass cabinet door. My face looked calm, almost indifferent, but my eyes held something new, a quiet sharpness, the kind that doesn't fade once it's earned. For the first time in months, I felt completely in control. The phone buzzed once more, a single text from an unknown number. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I didn't reply. I just turned off the light and let the screen glow fade into darkness. Tomorrow the next move would come. For now, I had all the proof I needed, and all the power I'd once given away. The following Monday began with sunlight too bright to trust, the kind that pretends everything's fine when you know the ground under it is starting to shift. I sat in my office, pretending to read through a deposition, but my mind kept circling the same thought. How far is too far when someone already pushed you over the line? I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was orchestrating, and there's a certain clarity that comes with that realization. By noon, I had 3 missed calls from Adam. The 4th came through while I was sipping cold coffee. I answered this time, part curiosity, part calculation. "You've made a mess," he said, voice brittle. "Claire's threatening legal action." "Legal action for what?" I asked. "Infidelity. There's no statute for that. She says you slandered her." "Truth isn't slander," I replied. "Tell her to review the definitions before she pays her retainer." He exhaled hard, a sound more of defeat than anger. "I'm serious, Sam. You've turned everyone against me, even Mum's getting calls." "Maybe she should change her number," I said. "It seems contagious." His voice cracked. "What do you want? Money? Apology? What will end this?" "End," I echoed, letting the silence stretch. "You ended us when you chose convenience over honesty. I'm just tying up the paperwork." He hung up first. I stared at the phone for a moment, then placed it face down on the desk. It buzzed again seconds later. Texts from mutual acquaintances, each one wrapped in false concern. People pretending they wanted to check in, when what they really wanted was a quote for the next round of Maplewood gossip. That evening, I stopped by the grocery store. Half the town was there, or so it seemed. Eyes followed me between aisles, their gazes like whispers I could almost hear. I smiled, pushing the cart slowly, selecting items I didn't need simply because control, any control, felt satisfying. Near the self-checkout, a woman I barely knew leaned in and said, "You're brave, Samantha. Not everyone would handle things with such grace." "Grace is just focus with better posture," I said, scanning my receipt. When I returned home, a familiar car was parked 2 houses down, Tom Monroe's. He stepped out, gave me a small wave. I hesitated, then approached. "Thought I'd check in," he said. "You sent me truth when I couldn't see it. I owe you for that." "You don't owe me," I said. "You just deserve to know." He nodded, glancing at the Bennett mailbox like it might bite. "He's not taking it well. Claire tried to call me, you know. Blamed you for everything." "Blame's cheaper than accountability," I said. "People buy it in bulk." Tom smiled faintly. "You always talk like you're drafting closing arguments." "Occupational hazard," I said. He hesitated. "If you ever need help with anything, just ask." I thanked him and walked back to the house. Help wasn't what I needed. Witnesses were. By midweek, news of Claire's attempted lawsuit reached the local paper. Nothing official, just a gossip column wrapped in respectable language. Sources say a former dental assistant is pursuing legal options after an internal dispute. No names, but anyone with a functioning brain could fill in the blanks. It backfired beautifully. Instead of sympathy, people mocked her for going after the wife. Someone posted a comment. Maybe she should sue herself for poor judgment. I didn't write it, but I wish I had. Friday morning, I received a thick envelope at work. Inside, copies of financial reports, invoices from Adam's practice, and a note in Tom's handwriting. "You might want these. Looks like he's been creative with bookkeeping." I stared at the papers. Nothing criminal, just petty dishonesty, unpaid vendors, overcharged clients, small cracks in his perfect professional image. Still, it was enough to create pressure. And pressure, in Maplewood, was how foundations broke. That evening, I paid a visit to the clinic. The glass door reflected the setting sun, giving the place an eerie glow. Inside, the waiting room was half lit and half empty. Adam was at the front desk, alone. He looked up, startled. "Samantha," he said, "what are you doing here?" "Bringing closure," I replied, holding up the folder. "You should probably see this before the board does." He came around the counter, snatching it from my hand. As he flipped through, his expression changed from irritation to panic. "Where did you get these?" "Public sources," I lied smoothly. "Nothing a determined lawyer couldn't find." He tossed the folder on the counter. "You're trying to destroy me." "No," I said calmly. "I'm reminding you that the empire you built wasn't solid marble. It was drywall." The silence that followed was thick enough to measure. Then, without warning, he shouted, "Get out!" The receptionist, new, nervous, peeked out from a side door. Clients in the waiting area turned. Perfect. I gave them all a polite smile and said loudly, "Of course, wouldn't want to interrupt your business meeting." The air practically vibrated with awkward energy. I turned and walked out, heels tapping a rhythm that sounded like punctuation. By the time I reached my car, I knew the story would spread by nightfall. And it did. Within hours, someone posted on the local forum. Dr. Bennett's ex-wife just confronted him at the office. Wild, the details grew by the minute, each retelling a little more dramatic than the last. That weekend, Harriet showed up at my door. No warning, no greeting, just her perfume and disapproval filling the doorway. "You've humiliated my son enough," she said, eyes sharp as glass. "Whatever anger you have, take it out somewhere else." I crossed my arms. "He did that himself, Harriet." "You used to be family," she snapped. "You used to care." "I still care," I said quietly. "Just not about his comfort." Her eyes narrowed. "You sound proud of this." "I'm thorough," I corrected. "There's a difference." She glared at me for a long moment, then turned on her heel and marched down the walkway. I watched her go, feeling neither triumph nor guilt, just completion. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Later that night, I got a message from an unknown number. "You're cruel, Samantha. Everyone sees it now." I recognized the writing style instantly. Claire. I didn't reply. Instead, I took a screenshot and saved it. Evidence, always. The following morning, I met with a friend at the cafe downtown, a journalist I'd once represented in a privacy case. She owed me a favor. "I need a story run," I said, sliding a file across the table. Fact-checked, neutral tone, but with weight. She flipped through the pages. Mismanagement in a suburban dental practice? That's not exactly front-page material. "It will be when you mention how his former assistant tried to sue him and failed," I said. She looked up, eyebrows raised. "You're dangerous when you're organized." "I'm just tidy," I said, finishing my coffee. 2 days later, the piece appeared online. It wasn't scandalous, just factual, restrained, professional. But in Maplewood, even restraint cuts deep. The story spread fast. Adam's name trended locally for all the wrong reasons. His clinic's phone lines were flooded, not with patients, but with inquiries from curious reporters and concerned clients. When I saw him again, it was unplanned. I was at the post office waiting in line when he walked in. He froze for a second, then approached. "You got what you wanted," he said quietly. "I doubt that," I replied. "I'm still waiting for my house to stop smelling like regret." "Do you feel better now?" "Better isn't the point. Balance is." He looked at me for a long moment, something almost human flickering behind his exhaustion. "You won't let go until I'm nothing." I met his gaze evenly. "You said it, not me." He left without another word. People in line stared, pretending not to. I smiled at the clerk, paid for my stamps, and walked out as if I hadn't just dismantled a life in broad daylight. That night, I sat on the couch with a glass of wine and reflected. Maybe I'd gone too far. Or maybe I'd finally gone far enough. When you spend years being quiet, your first loud act sounds like thunder. Then came the call I didn't expect. Tom. You should know, he said. Adam's selling the house. Good, I said. It's full of ghosts. Not yet, he added. He's trying to buy another property. My agent mentioned it. Where? Right near the lake. Big windows. Nice view. He's acting like nothing happened. That flicker of arrogance reignited something in me. Something electric. Thanks, Tom, I said. That's helpful. After hanging up, I started planning. Not destruction exactly, just consequence. The next morning, I visited the real estate agency under the pretense of looking for property. I saw the listing immediately. 4-bedroom lakefront home, owned by Dr. Adam Bennett, under contract pending inspection. When the agent approached, cheerful and unaware, I smiled. Oh, I know the owner, I said. Could you add a note to the file? Something about pending legal disputes. Buyers should always know. She blinked, uncertain. Are you representing someone? In a way, I said. The truth. By the next week, the sale had fallen through. I didn't need to ask why. Word travels faster than logic in this town. On Friday, I decided to end the week the same way it began, on my terms. I drove by the clinic one last time. The windows were dark, the blinds half drawn. A faded closed for renovation sign hung crooked on the door. Inside, I could see him packing boxes. No staff, no laughter, just him. When he noticed me standing outside, he froze, then gave a small, weary nod. I nodded back, turned, and walked away. Later that evening, I stood in front of the mirror, brushing my hair. The woman staring back wasn't the same one from 6 months ago. The softness was gone, replaced by precision. Not colder, just clearer. For a moment, I wondered what people would say about me now. Villain, hero, fool, genius, it didn't matter. In Maplewood, stories never end. They just change narrators. My phone buzzed. A message from Tom. He's leaving town. I typed back, good. Tell him to keep driving. As I set the phone down, I caught my reflection again. The cracks in the mirror from an old frame shimmered faintly under the light. Imperfect, but whole. I smiled. Tomorrow there would be new gossip, new distractions, new stories to replace ours. But for tonight, I was content to sit in the quiet and let the world adjust to the new order, the one where the liar had been unmasked, and the woman he underestimated had finally stepped into the light. The day began with a quiet so deep it felt staged. Maplewood had a way of pretending peace whenever things were about to explode, and that morning, the stillness carried weight. I brewed coffee and watched the light crawl across the kitchen counter, thinking about how endings never announce themselves. They just slip in, disguised as routine. By noon, the air had thickened. Clouds rolled over the horizon, the kind that promised rain but not relief. I had no plans except one: finalize the sale of the house. It was the last piece connecting me to Adam, and I was ready to watch it disappear from my life like steam off the mug in my hand. The buyer arrived first, Tom Monroe, surprisingly. He'd made an offer through a mutual agent. When I saw his name on the paperwork, I hesitated for only a moment before signing. He looked steadier now, less like the man whose world had cracked open in his driveway weeks ago. Poetic, isn't it? He said as we stood in the empty living room. Me buying this place after everything. Poetic, or maybe just convenient, I said. He chuckled. You sure you're okay with it? I'm fine, I replied. This house was a museum of pretending. It's better off with new exhibits. He nodded. Well, for what it's worth, you handled everything better than I did. That's because I planned, I said, half smiling. You reacted. There's a difference. Before he could respond, headlights swept across the driveway. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Adam's car had a specific growl, impatient and practiced. Tom glanced toward the window. "You expecting company?" "Not exactly," I said. Adam's car door slammed, and a second later, the front door rattled under his knock. "Samantha!" His voice was rough, unsteady. Tom frowned. "Want me to stay?" "Yes," I said. "For once, let's have an audience." I opened the door. Adam stood there, soaked in sweat and anger, hair disheveled, tie crooked, eyes wild. He looked nothing like the man who once sold charm for a living. "So it's true," he said, scanning the boxes stacked by the wall. "You're selling the house?" "I told you I would." To him, he pointed at Tom. "Are you serious? After everything?" "Completely serious," I said calmly. "It's called moving on." He stepped inside without invitation. "You think this fixes anything? Selling it to the man whose wife ruined our marriage?" I laughed once, sharp and quick. "Claire didn't ruin anything. You did that all on your own. She was just convenient for the cleanup." Tom shifted his weight, unsure whether to intervene. "Maybe you should leave, Adam," he said cautiously. Adam turned on him. "Don't talk to me about leaving. You have no idea what she's done." "Oh, I think I do," Tom said. "I just think she's better at it." Adam's face twisted, and for a moment, I saw the exact second his pride broke. He turned back to me. "You've destroyed everything. My practice, my reputation." "I didn't destroy it," I interrupted. "You just finally had to live without a mask." He took a step closer. "You think you won? You think this makes you powerful?" "No," I said. "It makes me free." Lightning flickered outside, the kind that seems to illuminate truth rather than landscape. Rain began tapping against the windows, steady, insistent. He paced, rubbing his temples. "You don't get it, do you? You made me into this. You kept pushing, testing, digging, until there was nothing left to save." "I asked for honesty," I said. "You gave me theater. Now the show's over." His jaw clenched. "You'll regret this, Samantha. Everything you've done. It'll come back to you." I tilted my head. "So will your own choices, apparently." Tom stepped between us slightly. "Adam, you need to leave before this gets worse." "Stay out of it," Adam snapped. "This is between us." "Actually," I said, voice calm but sharp, "it's between the past and the future, and the past is overstaying its welcome." For a moment, everything froze, the three of us caught in a standoff framed by rain and resentment. Then Adam laughed, a bitter sound. "You know what's funny? I thought you'd cry. I thought you'd beg. But you don't feel anything, do you?" "Oh, I feel plenty," I said. "Just not for you." That silenced him. He looked around the house one last time, eyes landing on the family photos still on the wall. He reached for one, the vacation in Charleston, the trip where we'd still pretended to be happy, and I stopped him. "Leave it," I said. "It's part of the sale." He let out a short, humorless laugh. "You really are something." "Finally," I said, "you notice." He turned toward the door, but as he did, I caught a faint shimmer in the corner of his eye. Regret, maybe, or realization. It didn't matter anymore. He left without another word, the door slamming behind him as thunder rolled overhead. Tom exhaled slowly. "You sure you're all right?" "Better than I've been in years," I said. "Now let's finish signing those papers before the universe decides to add more drama." We went through the documents, the sound of rain filling the silence. When it was done, I handed him the keys. "Congratulations. She's all yours." He smiled faintly. "You're sure you don't want to keep anything? Memories?" I shook my head. "Memories don't need storage. They find you whether you want them to or not." He nodded, understanding more than he said. As he left, I watched from the doorway, the rain softening to a drizzle. The neighborhood looked different now. Same houses, same lights, but less illusion. The curtain had finally dropped. I went upstairs one last time, walking through each room like a juror inspecting evidence. The master bedroom still smelled faintly of Adam's cologne, the one he wore when he thought appearances could fix everything. I opened the window, letting the air clear it out. Downstairs, the power flickered. The storm had gathered strength again, wind pressing against the glass, trees bending like reluctant witnesses. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside, locking the door behind me. My car waited at the curb, trunk packed with the last of my things. But before I got in, I saw headlights approaching, the same car back again. Adam, of course. He parked crookedly, got out and stood in the rain without an umbrella. "You're really leaving?" he shouted over the wind. "Yes," I called back. "You should try it sometime." "You can't just walk away." "I already did," I said. He took a few steps closer, water running down his face. "What do you want me to say, huh? That I'm sorry?" "Fine. I'm sorry." "It's too late for sorry," I said. "You can't rebuild something you already burned down." His voice cracked. "You were supposed to be my partner." "I was," I said softly, "until you decided partnership was optional." Lightning split the sky, followed by a low rumble. He looked at the car behind me, at the packed boxes inside. "Where will you go?" "Anywhere that doesn't remember your name," I said. He shook his head slowly, like he couldn't process the simplicity of it. "You really think you can start over?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." He looked like he wanted to argue, but the words never came. His eyes drifted to the house, the symbol of everything he'd lost. Maybe he saw what I saw, a shell of polished lies, hollowed out and waiting to collapse. "You win," he said finally, voice barely audible over the rain. "This wasn't a contest," I replied. "It was a correction." For a moment he stood there, rain pooling around his shoes, shoulders slumped. Then he turned and walked toward his car. But before he opened the door, I called out, "Adam." He stopped, glanced back. "Next time you want to build something that lasts," I said, "try using truth instead of charm." He didn't answer, just got in, started the engine and drove away, tires spinning through puddles. I watched until the taillights vanished down the street. The storm had eased, leaving only the sound of rain dripping from the gutters. I took a slow breath, feeling the strange calm that comes when a long fight finally ends. Not victory, not defeat, just stillness. When I turned back toward the house, something glinted under the porch light, Adam's old house keys. He must have dropped them. I picked them up, holding the cold metal for a moment before setting them on the porch railing. They belonged here now, not with me. I got in my car, started the engine, and rolled the window down halfway. The rain brushed against my face, cool and grounding. As I pulled away, I glanced in the mirror. The house stood dark behind me, empty, yet somehow brighter than it had ever been. Halfway down the street, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You really did it." No name, but I knew who it was. Tom. I typed back, "Some things have to be finished properly." Then I switched off the phone. The road curved toward the main highway, slick and shining under the storm's aftermath. I pressed the accelerator just enough to feel motion, not escape. There's a difference. For the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel like someone's shadow. I wasn't the wronged wife or the scandal's centerpiece. I was just Samantha, lawyer, strategist, survivor of suburbia's perfect storm. As I reached the edge of town, I saw the "Welcome to Maplewood" sign in my rearview mirror. I smiled, not bitterly this time, but with quiet satisfaction. Some places aren't meant to be homes forever. They're just classrooms where you learn what you'll never tolerate again. The rain picked up again, soft but steady, tapping against the roof like applause. I turned on the headlights, following the curve of the road ahead. Behind me, Maplewood shrank into the distance. Its perfect lawns, its gossip, its carefully managed facades. In front of me, the night stretched open, wide and unscripted. I didn't know where the next turn would lead, and for once, that uncertainty felt like freedom. The storm flickered in the distance one last time, a flash of light cutting through the clouds, and I whispered into the quiet car, "Show's over." Then I drove on, the tires slicing through rainwater, leaving only ripples behind, small, fleeting, and perfectly timed to disappear.